What's up, guys?
What's up, guys? Smash that like button.
You're a natural.
Subscribe to our channel.
You're a natural. Hey everyone, welcome back to Alf's Mustang Garage. We're back on the 66 fastback Mustang 6-cylinder to 289 conversion. And the previous video we did the brake rotors and calipers. Today's video we're going to install the brake booster and master cylinder. Okay, I think I mentioned this before in the previous video when we were setting up the brake rotors and calipers, but I really like CSRP brakes, okay? The biggest reason why I like CSRP brakes is because their booster and master cylinder combination for a 65 and 6 Mustang will clear your shock towers 10 times out of 10. Okay, other kits out there, they're kind of hit and miss. They will say in the disclaimers, you may have to modify the shock towers, but you get it and you have to like literally modify your shock towers and make it fit. I'm not about that life whatsoever. If I'm modifying shock towers, it's because I'm deleting them and putting in the Mustang 2 front end, okay? But this kit is awesome. So this is how it comes in the kit. Now we have to bench bleed your master cylinder. I like to take them off the booster and then check my pushrod adjustment from the booster to the master, because I like to make sure that is, you know, correct before I install the whole thing. So first thing we're going to do is just kind of, you know, disconnect this brake line and remove the master cylinder from the booster. Okay, so before we go over to the bench, we just installed these little plugs, which are supplied in your kit. There's a couple different ways to bench bleed a master cylinder. One way is to just kind of put the plugs in and then just work the plunger with fresh brake fluid inside. Another way is to put in the ports that kind of loop, you know, clear tubes back to the reservoir. This particular master cylinder, I have found that the best way is to use the plugs supplied in the kit. Okay, so we just kind of like to put these in the vise, fill them up full of brake fluid, just standard .3, and then we're just going to pump it several times, just kind of simulating you actuating the brake pedal. Okay, so how do you know that you're done bench bleeding? Well, this might be really hard to see on camera, but clear up in the front there, you'll kind of notice like little air bubbles coming out of as you initially start. Once you've done it for like 3 to 5 minutes, you'll kind of stop seeing the air bubbles. It'll kind of get a little stiffer, but you know, in his instructions he says it gets completely stiff, but you know, once I kind of start seeing, you know, no bubbles, I feel like it's probably pretty good. So, but we usually kind of go overboard, and I usually kind of, you know, actuate this master cylinder for at least 5 minutes in the vise, just kind of working it, and then I make sure like she's really good and primed and bled out and good. One of the biggest things that you need to pay attention to before you just slap all this stuff back together is you want to make sure that this push rod on the booster is aligned correctly to your master cylinder, okay? If the gap between here and here is too large, you're going to have a delayed pedal engagement and it won't fully engage. If it's too tight, like it's already depressing, then you're going to be essentially riding on your brakes. So how do you measure that? Well, this right here is a must-have tool. Can you probably make your own? Yep. Can you buy this on National Parts Depot? Yep. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna set this up to, this is pretty easy to read, pretty easy to kind of figure out. But this end is the brake booster, this end is the master cylinder. So what you want to do to use this is you want to install this on the master cylinder first. So you're going to use the master cylinder end. You have your lock nut loose. You're going to install this until it just kind of, and push the push rod in until it bottoms out, okay? Now you want to keep firm on the frame of this tool so it's mounting flush to the master cylinder. Push the push rod in and lock it down, okay? Now that's going to simulate where the push rod needs to be here on the booster. So we're going to take this right over here on the booster, and it is adjusted perfectly in our case. You just kind of want to verify, because when Dennis sends these out, he sets them up beforehand, but you want to like double check this. If you're working on a different type of booster, you still want to like set this up and check it yourself. So, but there should be like a very small gap there, or it's just kind of like a zero gap kind of a thing. You just don't want it to be too tight or too loose, and if there is, you need there's a little lock nut on that push rod, and you can kind of lengthen it or shorten it to whatever you need. Okay, so once you've verified your booster push rod length, you can go ahead and bolt this all back together. As far as this tool goes, I will post a link in the description for that tool. I get it from National Parts Depot.
You need your proportioning valve.
Oh, so before you put this all on there with the nuts, your proportioning valve is on a bracket. Nice, convenient, very clean looking. Thank you, cameraman.
You are welcome.
Okay, that's good.
And also make sure bracket goes on after the master cylinder, or it will throw off your adjustment.
Oh yeah, that is correct. Thank you again. Okay, so we're gonna do as much as I can on the table and minimize the risk of dripping any sort of brake fluid. On the car or my freshly painted engine bay. So we're gonna start that one. Yes, it was. You still recording?
Yes.
Oh, good. There's this random guy that just keeps walking up here. It's like on that movie Half Baked, the dude on the couch.
I'd make a great dude on the couch.
Oh, man. I understand that, you know, you may not be doing this with the engine out. We kind of are. So while the engine's out, we're going to do this brake install because it's just so much easier. So we took off the factory distribution block, which is here. This is the rear brake port for the out portion. The kit comes with a plug, so that plug needs to go in there. Okay, so we're gonna install this little guy first. And that's a factory distribution block. It's original. We just took it out and cleaned it all up. That puts that back in place. Okay, so when you're setting up your lines and everything, your front in is going to go here. Your left front out is going to come out right here and go through the shock tower, and then your right front out is going to come out of here and go across the firewall and over here to the right front. The rear is going to be plugged up, but it just comes directly out the master cylinder, goes into the proportioning valve, and then from the proportioning valve it's going to go into your main line going to the back brakes. We already removed the master cylinder, but normally you would have a master cylinder here. We already took all the brake lines off because we were repainting this whole engine compartment. So we're just taking these two bolts off right here. These are the two remaining bolts for the brake pedal support. Now, this is another thing I haven't mentioned yet. but it's one more reason why I like this brake kit from CSRP. And that is because on other brake kits, you're required to modify the firewall. You have to cut out this hole and make it elongated, kind of oval it out to provide clearance for your booster. This kit, you do not have to do that, okay? So it saves you a ton of time in labor and headaches. So it just becomes more of a, you know, bolt-on kit, which is huge when it comes to just bolting it on and getting on with your life. So I wish I had a booster. Oh man, thank you. Okay, this booster is awesome. We're gonna leave this loose for now. Once we attach it to the brake pedal assembly, we'll take care of all that. But she's just gonna slide all in, and look at all this clearance. This is the cool part. Look at all this clearance here between the shock tower and your master cylinder. This is crazy. But that's just kind of like why I buy this kit. Because other ones, they're gonna tell you you're gonna notch this shock tower right here. You can use factory hardware if you want, or you can use the supplied bolts. Whatever you want to do. So I was just installing this whole booster assembly, and this is like probably the only thing that you are going to need to purchase separately, unless you already have one, because maybe your car was a factory power brake car. And it's this firewall seal that is going to go right here for your booster. Okay, but the booster doesn't like have one, so if you just install this, you're just going to kind of have this big gaping hole that just isn't really sealed. So it's probably a good idea to go ahead and purchase this, and I'll post a link in the description so you guys can kind of see where to get it. So yeah, it's been a few days because I had to like stop what I was doing and order this, and so we kind of like, you know, built some custom brake lines just to kind of like expedite our little process here. We like to kind of build our own brake lines here, just because we are doing like so much other work to this car. Again, it's not like a requirement, but you know, we had everything out of this car and we just built all new brake lines and everything. So, okay, we're going to install just a little bit of Vaseline on the push rod, because the boot is actually meant for like a factory power brake car, and this, you know, aftermarket one is going to be a little bigger. So we're just going to make it lube so it just kind of slides in and out nice. So leave that loose so I can get it adjusted to the pedal. Install that. So it might be a little tricky to like get to these bolts, but if you have one of these really cool ratcheting flex head ratchets, it makes life a little easier. Okay, one thing you'll notice with like your brake booster is like the bracket is like slotted, so you can like set the height of this booster, and you want to kind of pay attention to like the push rod that connects to the brake pedal. So what you want is that brake pedal to be like perfectly level with the booster. So you're going to want to like kind of set it and go inside and eyeball it and kind of see if it's like nice and straight engagement as you actuate that pedal. Okay, so there's your booster installed. As you can see, there is tons of clearance here. There is zero chance of you having to modify your shock towers, and that's why I always buy this particular kit. No, it's not a concourse kit. Is it an improvement of your safety and performance of the car? Yes. So that's why we use these. And is it going to save you a ton of work by it being just virtually a direct bolt-on? Absolutely. You don't have to modify the firewall. You don't have to modify the shock tower. It just bolts in and hooks up. So from here, you have your bracket with your proportioning valve. Your rear brake line comes off of your master cylinder into the proportioning valve and then out. Now that's going to connect to your main rear brake line. So if you're not, building all new brake lines like how we have done, and you're just going to use your existing brake line, you'll take your rear brake line and it's going to come out of your stock distribution block. Okay, so there's a port down underneath here that'll get a little plug. I know it's probably really difficult to see. Let me try to shine a light on it. But that stock original distribution block has like a little plug in it now, where the main rear line used to be is right here. So that would like come out of the block and connect to this line right here, which is gonna go from the proportioning valve and into the rear line, which would go down to the rear of the car. Okay, so this proportioning valve just has a little plug in it. I'm just going to pull that out. I hope all that kind of makes sense as far as how I'm explaining that, because your proportioning valve is going to go on the rear brake system. So that's why your main line for your rear is going to go right into here. And this line here that I'm working with right now is actually supplied with this kit. And this line kind of just connects to your main line, which is clear over here. And yes, it's kind of made to fit, but there is of course going to be some massaging that you're going to have to do until you get it just right. Okay, after you got that good and snug, let me show you how the rest of the lines orientate through here. Okay, so in the kit you're going to get a flexible steel braided line, and that's going to be for your front line. So the front line, in case you're like kind of unfamiliar with master cylinders, but the front brake line out port is always like closest to the firewall, and the rear brake line is always like furthest away. So he's going to go ahead and install this flexible line. It's going to go to the master cylinder, and then it goes to the front of the original distribution block. Okay, so I typically will install it like on the block first, because as soon as I remove that plug from that master cylinder, it's going to start dripping brake fluid. I hate brake fluid because it will like eat away at your paint. So it's just awful stuff. So I try to like, put some rags down and be as careful as possible, because that stuff is nasty. So we're going to try and be quick about it, but that's why we connected on the block first and then the master cylinder second. Okay, well, that is your brake booster and master cylinder and proportioning valve install. So there's the front brake line, or the the brake line for the front brakes. As you can see, it's all in there. You just kind of need to make sure you snug up every single connection. You'll need to make sure you connect your brake booster push rod to the brake pedal, and your kit will come with a bushing. It does have an optional brake warning light switch there, which in a car like this is not going to get used. But that's the setup. Again, highly recommend this if you're just plain converting, You know, in this particular case, we're, you know, doing the whole 6-cylinder to V8 conversion, and it's just a lot easier to set this entire system up when you can just kind of stand in the engine bay and just wrench away. So, you know, from here, we're gonna just like bleed the entire system, which I'm probably not going to do a separate video on that. There's a gazillion videos. I have one on bleeding the brake system, so just kind of watch out for that. If you're working on like a later model, like a 67 or later, they'll have like a factory brake warning light switch just in the distribution block. I do have a video to watch out for those, to use the special tool to insert to make sure you don't shift the shuttle valve. But other than that, I hope the video was helpful. If you did find it helpful, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. It's those little things that do help us to grow the channel and continue to make more videos for you guys. So, and if you want to follow us along, go ahead and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next go around.
So high, I'm hypnotized. What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through. Dangerous times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world, but keep the sky on your mind.